A.A. Wilson recently received Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year for 2025. Historical accomplishment, 4th MVP, and title. Run. She ought to be having fun. Rather, she took advantage of her largest platform to. Caitlin Clark was targeted. Wilson informed Time Magazine that obliterated WNBA history. For a minute. Not nuanced, not unintentional. A clear message intended for the novice who revolutionized women's basketball all night long. However, this is where this narrative takes a surprising turn. At last, Caitlin Clark spoke up. And everyone was astonished by her remark. Who anticipated drama? Because of what Clark did disclose all the reasons why one. The player is a symbol of this league, while the other holds on desperately to the past. This relates to more than honors in basketball. This describes two entirely distinct strategies for legacy, leadership, and what it means to expand the game. A large number of you've been stating for weeks that there was something strange about how established Clark was handled by WNBA players during her rookie season that broke all previous records. You were onto something. Wilson's time as well. A confirmed magazine interview. Everything. If you accept the narrative. Smash the story's backstory. Similar to a button. It indicates that we're on the correct course as we delve into what actually took place here. Let's dissect precisely. A.J. Wilson's remarks and the reasons behind her timing. Reveals everything. Wilson took a seat with Time Magazine for what ought to have been a joyous occasion. That was something she deserved. Acknowledgement. Season of history, dominating. Performances, 4th MVP honor, and leading the Aces of Las Vegas to another championship. These are authentic achievements that are worthy of recognition. Wilson, however, was unable to assist herself. She informed the interviewer that the history of the WNBA was deleted for a minute. They weren't hurled in a casual manner. Wilson was fully aware of who she was and what she was saying. Aiming. The timing of that remark nicely complements Caitlin Clark's burst upon the scene in her 2024 first season. Consider what transpired. The previous year, Clark broke every. The WNBA had an attendance record. She generated ratings for television. The league had never seen it before. She produced greater coverage in the mainstream media for women's basketball compared to the prior 10 years in total. Venues that formerly having seats that are suddenly sold out for weeks beforehand. Networks battled for rights to broadcast. Sponsors in line with enormous deals. Wilson's statement on history was briefly removed, but she's not safeguarding a vague notion of league heritage. She is discussing everything is overshadowed by Clark's influence. Wilson's generation constructed. Moreover, this is the most revealing section. Wilson remained silent the entire time. The whole historic 2024 season for Clark. Rookie of the Year went to Clark. All in agreement. She broke 62 WNBA records. Documents. The Indiana Fever were led by her to their first trip to the playoffs since 2016. She rose to prominence as the face of women's basketball. Time Magazine awarded her the 2024 Athlete of the Year. Wilson possessed numerous of chances to offer Clark congratulations publicly or recognize her amazing accomplishments. She decided to remain silent every reading between the lines just once. That quiet said a lot. Wilson stated. When Clark was threatened, he did nothing. She remained silent in the face of hostile crowds in roadside arenas. She made no offer. Popular backing when Clark dealt with blatant infractions and clear physical other players targeting. Wilson, who claims to be a leader in the WNBA, never once utilized her position to greetings to the novice who was bringing millions of new admirers for their sport. Now, Wilson says she was defending the league's heritage and maintaining its the past. However, her timing betrays everything. She held off until she had the largest stage in her career to create these remarks. The Athlete in Time Magazine of the Year spotlight awarded her the ideal chance to minimize Clark's impact despite seeming to support the WNBA customs. It was computed, it was intentional, and it didn't work out magnificently. Wilson stated to Time Magazine that it wasn't a blow to her since she intended to do. Still, it's her thing. She promised to win the gold medal, be named MVP, and her resume was unstoppable. Take note how she concentrated solely on herself. Achievements, even while talking about the league's reaction to Clark. That Wilson's genuine thinking is revealed in this statement. Clark's success, in her opinion, poses a threat to her own legacy as opposed to a favorable advancement in women's basketball. The story in Time magazine contained words characterizing Clark's rise as establishing a poisonous or racially polarizing story. It implied that Clark was nearly solely in charge of saving a league whose basis had been established by a player base that is primarily black. This Wilson's feature featured framing narrative, implying the story Wilson wished to spread awareness of Clark's influence. Many of you observed this during the season. Wilson's public image has been focused on solidarity and assistance other female basketball players. She speaks about encouraging and developing one another, the game together. However, these passive, hostile remarks regarding Clark expose a distinct side. She is prepared to use cryptic language and subtle jabs to discredit the player who contributed most. More focus on the WNBA than anyone in fresh recollection. This inconsistency between her public persona and her real behavior indicates deliberate intent behind what she said. Wilson possessed all opportunity to be kind and hospitable to the novice who was improving the whole sport. Rather, she decided to envy masquerading as league protection. The past. However, the hypocrisy is even more deeper. Let's make the connection between Wilson's remarks regarding Clark's individual honor in 2024 and how she is in charge of her own Time magazine right now. When Caitlin Clark, dominating the news, Aya Wilson and numerous other WNBA veterans expressed dissatisfaction loudly about personal acknowledgement. They claimed it was unjust and polarizing for one player to receive a lot of attention. Wilson suggested that Clark's attention was troublesome. She introduced racial issues within the dialogue as a means of diminishing Clark's accomplishments. Johnson, Sheila, the Washington Mystics proprietor, continued live broadcast stating that the whole WNBA required to appear on the cover of Time magazine. Not only Caitlin Clark. Wilson contended that Clark's acknowledgement ignored the other players' contributions, especially African American athletes, who created the foundation of the WNBA. She threw herself as a guardian of the league's history and ensuring appropriate credit goes to everyone who was deserving of it. The story turned into one about group accomplishment as opposed to personal fame. Wilson depicted Clark's extensive media consideration as detrimental to the sport and unjust to other players who deserve it. Quick, ahead to the present. Aya Wilson makes a solo appearance on the cover of Time magazine as their 2025 Athlete of the Year. Where are all those voices calling for widespread acknowledgement? Where are the grievances regarding one? The gamer is becoming overly independent. Focus? There is an overwhelming quiet. Wilson is by himself in that publication cover that she uses to symbolize herself and her accomplishments with no resistance from the same individuals who condemn Clark's individual acknowledgement in a matter of months earlier. Tell us in the comments, what are your thoughts on this double standard? Does AA merit the acknowledgement she's receiving, or does she? Can her accomplishments be undermined by hypocrisy? The league that purportedly valued a team first mindset and now shared credit recognizes Wilson as the unique face of WNBA achievement. No one insisted that teammates be a part of the acknowledgement. No one requested the loss. The spotlight will be shared with Vegas Aces. Wilson was not criticized by anyone, overshadowing players who deserve it. The same justifications applied to Caitlin. When Wilson gains, Clark vanishes from personal honors. This reveals what many of you had long suspected. Clark's criticism was never truly about safeguarding collective recognition or keeping league history intact. It was regarding envy and the fear of being overshadowed. Wilson and her classmates were totally okay with each person acknowledgement and a single player spotlights. All they desired was to be those who were getting it. When Clark's influence endangered their roles as the faces of women's basketball, they produced grievances regarding equity and collective accomplishment. The instant Wilson obtains her each magazine cover, all those principles vanish. A pattern emerges when the dots are connected. Wilson's opposition to Clark was never regarding ideology or defending the WNBA values. It was about safeguarding her own standing at the top of the hierarchy. This is revealed by the hypocrisy truly about from the start. However, this is where the narrative becomes even more intriguing. Let's investigate why Wilson feels extremely intimidated by Caitlin Clark's appearance. The figures reveal a terrible tale to support Wilson's claim. Clark made money throughout his rookie season, increases that the WNBA had never. Knowledgeable. Sales of goods increased by 500%. Clark shirts outsold Wilson's equipment by a huge margins. Attendance numbers increased substantially when Clark performed, in contrast to Wilson's games. Ratings for television made the divide even more obvious. Caitlin Clark's games drew audiences that were far larger than the average WNBA audience. Networks rushed to broadcast fever games since they were aware of Clark was sure to draw attention. The marketplace made it evident which way the future of the league is uncertain. Wilson performed remarkable feats during her career, including MVP honors, titles. She made herself known, considered one of the top WNBA players. The past. However, Clark succeeded in one season that Wilson spent years developing. Clark's direct influence on each quantifiable component of the game. Wilson's status as the face of basketball for women. The figures don't tell lies. Clark's cultural influence goes well beyond basketball accolades. She made an appearance on Forbes 30 Under 30 lists. International entertainment companies fought for her endorsements. A social media presence produces involvement that Wilson's narratives are unable to match. Clark is an example of the kind of athlete who is not just about athletics limits. Wilson is still limited to basketball-specific acknowledgement. Wilson's envy turns into evident if you look at the time frame. She said nothing during Clark's amazing accomplishments as a rookie. She said, until after Clark was given a substantial acknowledgement. Wilson held off until she had an opportunity to limit Clark's achievements while highlighting her personal heritage. Her interview with Time magazine provided her the ideal chance to destroy the top player in the league while seeming to uphold WNBA history. Wilson used her because she was afraid. Greatest professional achievement as a weapon against Clark as opposed to a joyous occasion of her own achievements. Next, Caitlin Clark finally spoke up following days of fans are curious about her reaction to Wilson's covert assaults. At last, Clark dealt with the issue. The basketball. The world held its breath. Clark possessed all the right to retaliate. She might have pointed out the blatant hypocrisy. Wilson's silence may have been highlighted. During her first-year successes, she might have made the double standard clear. Wilson was able to celebrate individual acknowledgement while offering criticism. Clark for the same reason. Clark selected a completely different route. She began to Instagram and shared a straightforward but strong words of congratulations to Wilson on her 2025 Athlete of the Year award.